Reader response theory is a literary criticism theory that focuses on the reader's interpretation of a text. It is based on the idea that meaning is not inherent in a text but is created through the interaction between the reader and the text. The theory suggests that each reader brings their own experiences, beliefs, and attitudes to a text, and this affects how they understand and interpret the text. The concept of reader response theory emerged in the 1960s and 1970s, as a response to the dominant new criticism theory that focused on the text itself. Reader response theory emphasizes the reader's role in the interpretation of a text and highlights the importance of subjective experience in the reading process. The key concepts of reader response theory are as follows. Subjectivity. Reader response theory suggests that meaning is subjective and personal. The meaning of a text is not fixed or objective, but is created through the interaction between the reader and the text. The reader brings their own experiences, beliefs, and attitudes to a text, and this affects how they understand and interpret the text. Interpretation. Reader response theory emphasizes the importance of interpretation in the reading process. The reader's interpretation of a text is not solely determined by the text itself, but is also influenced by the reader's experiences and circumstances. Each reader creates their own meaning through the reading process, and this meaning may change over time. Reader's role. Reader response theory suggests that the reader plays an active role in the interpretation of a text. The reader is not a passive recipient of the text's meaning but actively creates meaning through their interaction with the text. The reader's interpretation of a text is as important as the text itself. Genre. Reader response theory suggests that the reader's interpretation of a text is influenced by its genre. Different genres have different expectations and conventions, and the reader's understanding of these conventions affects their interpretation of the text. Historical context. Reader response theory suggests that the reader's interpretation of a text is influenced by its historical context. The cultural and social context in which a text is situated affects how it is understood and interpreted. Emotion. Reader response theory suggests that the reader's emotional response to a text is an important aspect of the reading process. The reader may identify with the characters, relate to the themes, or be moved by the text's message. 3 types of readers. Reader response theory suggests that there are 3 types of readers: the efferent reader, the aesthetic reader, and the engaged reader. The efferent reader is primarily concerned with extracting information from the text, while the aesthetic reader is interested in the text's formal qualities. The engaged reader is emotionally invested in the text. Author's intention. Critics of reader response theory argue that it ignores the author's intention and the objective meaning of a text. However, proponents of reader response theory argue that there is no single objective meaning of a text, and that meaning is created through the interaction between the reader and the text. There are several theorists associated with the development of reader response theory in literature. The following are some of the key theorists and their contributions to the theory. Louise M. Rosenblatt. Rosenblatt is considered one of the pioneers of reader response theory. In her book, Literature as Exploration, she argued that the meaning of a text is not solely determined by the text itself but is also created by the reader's interaction with the text. She introduced the concept of transaction to describe the reader's interaction with the text, which involves a dynamic process of interpretation and response. Wolfgang Qaiser. Qaiser expanded on Rosenblatt's theory by introducing the concept of the implied reader. He suggested that the text creates an implied reader, who is assumed to share certain values, assumptions, and beliefs with the author. The reader then interacts with the text as an actual reader, bringing their own experiences and beliefs to the reading process. Qaiser also emphasized the role of gaps and absences in the text, which he called blanks, that the reader must fill in to create meaning. Stanley Fish. Fisher's contribution to reader response theory focused on the role of interpretive communities. He argued that readers are not isolated individuals but are part of interpretive communities that share common assumptions, beliefs, and values. The reader's interpretation of a text is shaped by their membership in these communities. Fish also emphasized the role of the reader's affective response to a text, which he called affective stylistics. Norman Holland. Holland's contribution to reader response theory focused on the psychological aspects of the reading process. He argued that readers have unconscious desires and anxieties that influence their interpretation of a text. He suggested that the reader's response to a text is influenced by their personality, and that different readers will have different responses to the same text. David Blake. Blake's contribution to reader response theory focused on the social and political implications of the reading process. He argued that the reader's interpretation of a text is influenced by their social and political context. He suggested that the reader's response to a text can reveal their attitudes towards power, authority, and social norms. These theorists have emphasized the importance of the reader's interaction with the text, the role of gaps and absences in the text, the role of interpretive communities, the psychological aspects of the reading process, and the social and political implications of the reading process. Reader response theory asks several questions while interpreting a text. Here are some of the questions that the theory may raise. 1. How does the reader's personal experience and background influence their interpretation of the text? 2. What emotional response does the text evoke in the reader? How does this emotional response influence the reader's interpretation of the text? 3. How does the reader's knowledge of the genre and literary conventions influence their interpretation of the text? 4. How does the reader's understanding of the historical and cultural context in which the text was written influence their interpretation of the text? 5. How does the text create an implied reader? And how does this influence the reader's interpretation of the text? 6. How does the reader's membership in interpretive communities influence their interpretation of the text? 7. How do gaps and absences in the text, or what Qaiser calls blanks, influence the reader's interpretation of the text? 8. How does the reader's unconscious desires and anxieties influence their interpretation of the text? 9. How does the reader's response to the text reveal their attitudes towards power, authority, and social norms? Critics of reader response theory argue that it ignores the author's intention and the objective meaning of a text. They argue that the text has a fixed meaning, and the reader's interpretation should be based on an understanding of this meaning. However, proponents of reader response theory argue that there is no single objective meaning of a text, and that meaning is created through the interaction between the reader and the text. In conclusion, reader response theory emphasizes the reader's role in the interpretation of a text and highlights the importance of subjective experience in the reading process. The theory suggests that each reader creates their own meaning through the reading process, and this meaning is not fixed or objective but is subjective and personal.